Russia has not fired a single shot in this war. It has not lost a single soldier. It has not spent a single dollar. But in the 6 weeks since Operation Epic Fury began, Vladimir Putin has gained more than he did in 2 years of grinding war in Ukraine. Russia is pulling 198 of its nuclear technicians out of Iran's Bushehr reactor, but not because it is abandoning Iran, because it has already extracted everything it needed. While the world watches Iran fire its 97th wave of strikes at American bases, Moscow is quietly collecting something far more valuable than battlefield glory. It is collecting leverage over America, over Europe, over the global energy order, and it is doing it in complete silence. We need to talk about what Russia is actually doing in this war, why Putin has not said a word of public condemnation of Iran, and what the next 60 days look like if nobody calls this out. Here is what we know. On the 28th of February 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran. Within 48 hours, Russia's foreign ministry issued a statement calling the strikes a flagrant violation of international law. That was it. No emergency UN session demanded, no sanctions threatened, no red lines drawn. Compare that to 2022, when the entire Western world mobilized in under 72 hours to sanction Russia after its invasion of Ukraine. Russia's silence here is not neutrality. In geopolitics, silence is a position. Here is the contradiction that nobody in Washington wants to address. Russia has a 25-year friendship treaty with Iran, signed in January 2026, just 28 days before this war started. That treaty covers military and technical cooperation. It covers intelligence sharing. It covers economic coordination. The ink was barely dry when the first American Tomahawk missiles hit Tehran. And here is what makes this worse. Russian state media, RT, TASS, RIA Novosti, have covered every single Iranian missile strike against American and Israeli targets with what analysts describe as undisguised satisfaction. Not reporting, celebration. The framing is consistent. America is losing. Iran is holding. The global order is shifting. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, when asked directly whether Russia supports Iran's position, said only that Russia supports a diplomatic resolution and opposes unilateral military action. He did not say Russia opposes Iran's missile strikes. He did not call for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He said he opposes the original American strikes. That framing is deliberate. It is the same framing Russia used during the 2003 Iraq War, the 2011 Libya intervention, and every American-led military operation since the Cold War. Russia never defends its partners openly. It simply refuses to condemn them. Stay with me, because this is the section that changes everything you think you know about how Iran is fighting this war. Most people assume Iran's missile accuracy is a function of Chinese Beidou navigation, and China's role is real, but there is a second layer underneath it that gets almost no coverage in Western media: Russia's GLONASS satellite navigation system. Iran integrated GLONASS guidance into its Khorramshahr 4 and Fatah hypersonic missile systems beginning in 2023 as part of the military cooperation annex of the bilateral framework agreed in Moscow. Unlike GPS, GLONASS operates on a different frequency band and uses a different orbital geometry. That means American jamming systems calibrated to disrupt GPS or Beidou signals do not automatically disrupt GLONASS. An Iranian missile using GLONASS as a backup navigation layer can maintain precision even when primary guidance is jammed. The Royal United Services Institute, in their March 2026 assessment, noted that the accuracy of Iranian strikes had significantly exceeded pre-war intelligence estimates. American planners had expected Iranian missiles to land within 50 to 100 meters of their targets on average. Several documented strikes hit within 8 to 12 meters. That level of precision does not come from a single guidance system. It comes from redundant layers. China built one layer, Russia built another. Iran is flying with both. There is more. Russia evacuated 198 Russian nationals from Bushehr in late March. Western media covered this as Russia distancing itself from the conflict. The actual significance is the opposite. Those technicians had already completed a critical maintenance and fuel cycle at the reactor. Bushehr is now running at full capacity with fresh fuel rods loaded and sealed. Russia left Iran with a fully operational nuclear power plant before withdrawing its personnel to safety. That is not abandonment. That is a completed handoff. And here is the detail that should alarm every NATO defense planner. Those 198 Russian nationals were evacuated using a coordinated diplomatic channel that involved both the IAEA and Israeli military deconflictation. The IDF specifically paused certain air operations to allow safe passage of Russian nationals out of Iran. That means Israel, while fighting Iran, was simultaneously accommodating Russian interests. Russia extracted leverage from both sides simultaneously without firing a shot. The Strait of Hormuz carries 20% of global oil and LNG supply. Iran closed it. Brent crude surged from around $73 per barrel before the war to above $126 at its peak. That is a 73% increase in 6 weeks. Who benefits from $126 oil? Russia. Russia's entire federal budget is calibrated around oil and gas revenues. Before the war, Western sanctions had pushed Russian export revenues into a stressed but manageable position. The G7 price cap on Russian oil was functioning at a limited level. Russian Urals crude was trading at a discount to Brent of around $15 to $18 per barrel. Now do the math. Brent at $126 minus an $18 discount puts Russian Urals at approximately $108 per barrel. Before Operation Epic Fury, Russian Urals was trading near $58. Russia's oil revenues have effectively doubled since this war started, not because Russia did anything, because America did. The Russian Finance Ministry has quietly revised its 2026 budget surplus projections upward by an estimated 40%, according to analysts at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Russia is funding its entire Ukrainian operation, its military modernization program, and its strategic reserves simultaneously, on the back of oil prices generated by a war it had no part in starting. And here is the part that nobody in the US Treasury is saying out loud. The emergency stockpile release coordinated by the International Energy Agency, 400 million barrels from strategic petroleum reserves, was partially designed to suppress oil prices and reduce Russia's windfall. It barely moved the market. IEA reserves are finite, Russian production is not. OPEC Plus, which Russia co-chairs alongside Saudi Arabia, pledged a modest production increase of 206,000 barrels per day for May. That number is so small relative to the 20 million barrels per day removed by the Hormuz closure that it is essentially meaningless as market relief. Analysts at Goldman Sachs described it as a gesture, not a solution. Russia supported that gesture. Russia did not support a larger one. Now consider what is happening 3,000 miles away in a completely different theater, while every American carrier strike group, every Patriot battery, every THAAD system, and every senior Pentagon official is focused on the Persian Gulf. Ukraine, the front line that America was supposed to be watching. Since Operation Epic Fury began, the Pentagon has authorized transfers of Patriot interceptor components from European stockpiles designated for Ukrainian defense to Middle Eastern theater support. Poland refused to send its own Patriot batteries to the Gulf, but the broader reallocation of US air defense assets away from the European theater is confirmed by NATO officials speaking on background to Reuters.
The Russian military command has noted this. In the 5 weeks since this war started, Russian forces have conducted the 3 largest drone and missile barrages against Ukrainian cities since the war began in 2022. On the 15th of March, Russia launched 387 drones in a single night, the highest single-night total of the entire conflict. On the 29th of March, 412 drones. On the 6th of April, a combined package of over 300 drones and 48 ballistic missiles struck Kiev, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhia simultaneously. Ukrainian air defenses, already stretched, reported that interception rates had dropped from their previous average of 73% to below 60% in the most recent attacks. Russia is not escalating because it is feeling confident. It is escalating because it is watching American attention, American resources, and American interceptor stocks flow east toward the Persian Gulf. The window may not stay open. Russia is walking through it. Former NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Philip Breedlove told Politico that the simultaneous pressure on 2 theaters is not coincidental. He described it as a coordinated stress test on Western defense capacity, one theater draining the stockpiles, the other watching the gauges.
Here is the dimension of this story that reaches furthest into the future. Russia is currently the only major power that maintains formal diplomatic channels with all 4 principal actors in this conflict simultaneously: the United States, Iran, Israel, and the Gulf Arab states. China has a strong relationship with Iran and the Gulf states, but its relationship with Israel is strained. Europe has influence with the US and Israel, but almost none with Iran. Russia is the only player talking to everyone. That positioning is not accidental. Russia has spent a decade cultivating military and intelligence relationships in Syria, Iran, and the Gulf that give it unique leverage in any potential mediation. And Russia knows that whoever brokers a ceasefire in this conflict writes the terms of the post-war order in the Middle East. Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, has made 3 quiet diplomatic visits in the past 3 weeks: to Ankara, Turkey, a NATO member that has also refused to join the American coalition; to Qatar, the primary LNG exporter whose infrastructure has been damaged by this war and which is desperate for a ceasefire; and to New Delhi, India, which just purchased Iranian oil for the first time in 7 years and which is navigating the collision between its American strategic partnership and its energy dependency. Each of those 3 capitals represents a fault line in the American coalition. Turkey is technically NATO, practically independent. Qatar hosts the largest American airbase in the Middle East, Al Udeid, but is simultaneously paying Iran for gas passage rights through the strait. India is America's designated Indo-Pacific partner against China, but is buying sanctioned Iranian oil to keep its ceramics industry running. Lavrov is visiting all 3 of them. Deutsche Bank called this war a potential catalyst for the erosion of the petrodollar system. Russia has been working toward exactly that outcome for 15 years. If post-war energy trade in the Gulf is settled in yuan or in a BRICS-denominated currency rather than dollars, Russia benefits structurally and permanently. Every day this war continues without a dollar-denominated resolution moves that outcome closer. 6 weeks into this war, Russia has gained an estimated $80 to $100 billion in additional oil revenues above its pre-war baseline. It has tested Ukraine's defenses with the 3 largest drone barrages of the conflict while American attention was elsewhere. It has fully fueled the Bushehr nuclear plant and withdrawn its personnel to safety in a coordinated extraction that required Israeli military cooperation. It has positioned itself as the only neutral broker with access to every party in the conflict, and it has watched the American interceptor stockpile, the one that would also be used to defend Europe and the Indo-Pacific, burn through 40% of its capacity in 5 weeks. China is doing all of this too, We covered that last week. But China is doing it loudly, publishing strategic lessons on official platforms, validating Beidou in live combat, hosting European leaders. Russia is doing it quietly. No press conferences, no published lessons, no chest thumping. Just results. The Pentagon says Iran is beaten. Iran is on wave 97. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Oil is above $110 a barrel. Russia's budget surplus is rising. Ukraine is absorbing record drone barrages. And Russia has not spent a single dollar, lost a single soldier, or fired a single shot. The question that no government in Washington, Brussels, or Tel Aviv wants to answer out loud is this: when this war ends, who sits down at the table with the most leverage? Right now, the honest answer is not the country that fired the most missiles. It is the country that did not fire any. Thanks a lot for watching. Please subscribe and like the video if you want to stay updated. Let me know in the comments, do you think Russia is deliberately coordinating with Iran, or is this just opportunism? I'll see you in the next one.